It was a chilly December evening in 2013 when 12-year-old Ethan Parker emptied his piggy bank to buy a Christmas gift for his mom. Standing in a bustling Los Angeles toy store, he had no idea his life was about to change. Ethan had been saving every coin for months. His mom, Claire, a 34-year-old single mother, had been his unwavering support since his father left when Ethan was a toddler. She worked tirelessly, juggling 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night, to ensure Ethan never went without. As Ethan browsed the shelves, trying to find the perfect gift to show his gratitude, the door chimed and Keanu Reeves walked in. The sight of the Hollywood star captivated everyone in the store. But what happened next left an unforgettable mark on Ethan's life. Money was always tight, but Claire never let Ethan feel it. She transformed their tiny 1-bedroom apartment into a haven filled with warmth, laughter, and boundless love. Despite their modest means, Claire's joy for Christmas always shone through, even if decorations or gifts were scarce. This year, Ethan was determined to give her something special, something that would light up her face like he hadn't seen in a long time. Weeks earlier, he'd noticed her pause in front of a shop window, admiring a delicate snow globe with swirling glitter and a cozy winter scene inside. She had smiled wistfully and said, "Maybe someday," before walking away. To Ethan, that someday was today. He had saved every coin, ready to make her dream come true. With $17.36 in coins and crumpled dollar bills, Ethan walked 2 miles to the store after school. His heart pounded as he picked up the snow globe and carried it to the counter, praying the price hadn't changed from the tag he'd memorized weeks ago. But when the cashier rang it up, Ethan's hopes crumbled. "I'm sorry, kid," the cashier said apologetically. "The price went up last week. It's $22 now." Ethan's stomach dropped. He emptied his pockets, adding a few more coins to the pile, but it still wasn't enough. Fighting back tears, he turned to leave, clutching the snow globe in his mind instead of his hands. "Hey, let me help with that," came a deep voice behind him. Ethan turned, stunned. Standing there was Keanu Reeves, his beard scruffy, baseball cap low, yet instantly recognizable. Ethan stood frozen, his mouth slightly open in shock. Keanu Reeves crouched down to meet his eyes, a gentle smile on his face. "You buying this for someone special?" he asked. Ethan nodded shyly. "For my mom? She works a lot. She really liked it when we saw it before." Keanu's expression softened, and he stood, pulling out his wallet. "Tell you what," he said, handing a crisp $50 bill to the cashier. "This one's on me, and make sure the kid gets some change, okay?" Ethan stammered a quiet, "Thank you," barely able to process what was happening. But Keanu wasn't done. "I've got a soft spot for moms," he said with a grin. "She sounds pretty amazing. What's her name?" "Claire," Ethan replied. Keanu's smile widened. "Well, Ethan, let's make sure Claire has the best Christmas ever." He glanced around the store thoughtfully. "Mind if I help you pick out something else for her?" Keanu asked with a smile. Ethan blinked in disbelief. "Really?" And just like that, the two of them wandered the aisles together. Ethan couldn't believe how kind and genuine Keanu was, asking questions about his mom, what she liked, what her favorite colors were, and even about Ethan's favorite things. But as they moved through the store, something else started happening. People began to notice. Customers whispered to each other, and some discreetly pulled out their phones to capture the moment. By the time they reached the checkout with a second gift, a cozy scarf Keanu insisted was perfect for Claire, a small crowd had gathered. Keanu, however, seemed unfazed. He paid for everything, handed the bag to Ethan, and crouched down once more. "Now, promise me one thing," Keanu said. Ethan nodded eagerly. "When you give this to her, tell her it's not just from you. Tell her it's from me." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he clutched the bag tightly. "I will," he whispered, overwhelmed by Keanu's kindness. Just as Keanu was about to leave, something unexpected happened. A man in the crowd called out, "Hey Keanu, you're a legend, man." A ripple of applause followed, and someone else shouted, "Can we get a photo?" Keanu smiled politely, but then he looked down at Ethan. "Want to help me escape?" he joked, winking. Before Ethan could respond, a woman in a sharp suit stepped forward, her tone firm yet not unkind. "Mr. Reeves," she said, addressing him directly. "Can I have a word?" Keanu's expression shifted, becoming slightly guarded, but still curious. He glanced at Ethan and said, "Hang tight for a second, okay?" The woman led Keanu aside, speaking in hushed tones, and Ethan stood frozen, unsure of what was happening. Ethan couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw Keanu's expression shift from surprise to a thoughtful frown. Then, to Ethan's shock, Keanu turned back toward him with a look of resolve. "Ethan," Keanu said, "how about we make this an even better day for your mom?" Ethan blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Keanu grinned. "You'll see, but I'm going to need your help." What happened next would change Ethan and Claire's lives forever. But in that moment, all Ethan knew was that his favorite movie star had just turned the hardest, loneliest Christmas he'd ever faced into the beginning of something magical. Keanu knelt down again, his face serious yet warm. "Listen, Ethan," he began. "Sometimes people come into your life at just the right moment. I think this is one of those moments," Keanu said, his voice full of conviction. "Trust me." Ethan nodded, unsure of what Keanu meant, but already feeling a strange sense of comfort in his presence. The woman in the suit, who Ethan would later learn was Keanu's assistant, whispered something to him again. Keanu glanced at her, gave a small nod, and then turned back to Ethan. "Before we go," Keanu said, his voice soft but firm, "tell me something about your mom. What's her dream? What does she love most in the world, apart from you?" Ethan hesitated. His mom never really talked about herself much. Her life had always revolved around making sure Ethan was okay. But there was one thing he remembered, something she'd said once late at night when she thought he wasn't listening. "She always wanted to be a teacher," Ethan said quietly. "She loves helping people." "She always wanted to be a teacher," Ethan continued, his voice breaking slightly. "But she couldn't finish college because of me. She says it's okay, but I know she wishes she could have done it." Keanu's face softened, and for a moment he seemed lost in thought. Then he smiled, the same kind smile Ethan had seen in movies, the one that made you believe everything might just turn out okay. "Let's make something happen for her," Keanu said. Ethan didn't know exactly what that meant, but before he could ask, Keanu gently took his hand and led him out of the store. The crowd was buzzing now, some filming, others calling out, but Keanu expertly waved them off, keeping Ethan close. As they stepped outside, the cold air hit Ethan's face, and he realized just how far he was from home. "I should probably go back," Ethan mumbled, clutching the bag with the snow globe and scarf. "My mom gets worried if I'm late." Keanu crouched down again, meeting Ethan's eyes. "Do you trust me to get you home safely?" Ethan nodded, his trust in the actor growing with every passing moment. Keanu smiled, then pulled out his phone and made it a quick call. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. As they drove through the city, Ethan couldn't help but open up to Keanu. He told him about the nights his mom would come home, exhausted, but still find time to sit with him, reading stories. He shared how she always smiled, even when things were tough, and the little Christmas traditions they cherished, like watching old movies together and decorating the tiny fake tree they'd had since he was little. Keanu listened intently, nodding along, offering quiet encouragement. Keanu listened intently, nodding, and occasionally asking questions. When Ethan mentioned how much his mom loved Keanu's movies, especially The Lake House, the actor chuckled. "Well, let's see if we can make her next favorite memory even better," he said cryptically. Finally, the SUV pulled up in front of Ethan's apartment complex. Keanu walked him to the door, crouching down one last time to hand him the bag. "Now, remember," Keanu said, "this isn't just about the gifts. It's about letting your mom know how much she means to you. She sounds like an incredible woman." Ethan nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. He wanted to say so much to thank Keanu, to tell him how much this meant. But before he could, Keanu added, "Oh, and one more thing, I'll be back tomorrow. Tell her to keep her afternoon free." With that, Keanu ruffled Ethan's hair and walked back to the waiting car, leaving Ethan standing there, stunned and curious. Inside the apartment, Ethan carefully placed the gifts under their tiny tree, anxiously waiting for his mom to come home. When she did, her face lit up at the sight of the snow globe. "Ethan," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "How did you—" But before she could finish, Ethan blurted out, "Mom, you need to stay home tomorrow. Someone special is coming." Claire looked at him, confused but smiling. "Ethan, what's this about?" "You'll see," Ethan said, grinning despite himself. The next day arrived slowly, the hours dragging as Ethan waited. Claire, still puzzled, stayed home, cleaning and tidying the small apartment, despite Ethan's protests that it didn't matter. At exactly 2 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Ethan rushed to open it, his heart racing. Standing there, as promised, was Keanu Reeves, holding a large envelope in one hand and a bouquet of simple white lilies in the other. Claire froze, her eyes wide as she recognized him. "Oh my God!" she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Keanu stepped inside with a warm smile. "You must be Claire," he said. "Ethan's told me so much about you." Claire blinked, her cheeks flushing. I don't understand what's happening." Keanu handed her the flowers first, then the envelope. "Sometimes amazing people like you deserve a little help," he said gently. Claire opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a full scholarship application, already completed in her name, for a local community college's teaching program. Along with it was a letter from Keanu himself, offering to cover any remaining costs, tuition, books, everything. "Childcare, everything," Claire whispered, her legs nearly giving out as tears streamed down her face. She looked at Keanu, then at Ethan, who was beaming. I don't know what to say," she stammered. Keanu smiled. "Say yes. The world needs more people like you teaching the next generation." Claire pulled Ethan into a tight hug, her tears soaking his shoulder. "Thank you," she finally managed, looking at Keanu. "I don't know why you do this for us, but thank you." Keanu shook his head. "Your son's the real hero here. He loves you so much, it's impossible not to want to help." The moment hung heavy with emotion. For a while, the three of them simply talked about dreams, struggles, and the unexpected kindness of strangers. But deep in Ethan's heart, he knew this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. Keanu stayed a little longer that day, sitting at their tiny kitchen table, sipping the tea Claire nervously offered him. The apartment was modest, with peeling wallpaper and secondhand furniture, but it was filled with warmth, laughter, and the kind of love money could never buy. Keanu seemed to notice everything: the small pile of Ethan's schoolwork on the table, the neatly folded laundry Claire hadn't yet put away, and the tiny, well-loved Christmas tree in the corner. "You've done an amazing job, Claire," Keanu said after a while, his voice calm and sincere. "Ethan's proof of that." Claire smiled, though her cheeks were still damp from tears. "I've just been doing my best. He's my whole world." She paused, glancing at Ethan, her heart full of gratitude for the son who had made everything worth it. Claire stared at the envelope on the table. "But this is more than I ever could have dreamed of. I don't even know how to thank you." Keanu leaned back slightly, folding his arms in thought. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "Just promise me you'll believe in yourself as much as Ethan believes in you. That's all the thanks I need." The word struck Claire deeply. She looked at Ethan, her heart swelling with pride. "I'll try," she whispered. "I really will." As Keanu stood to leave, he turned to Ethan with a playful grin. "You take care of your mom, okay? She's one of the good ones." Ethan nodded, his chest puffing out with a sense of purpose. "I will." Keanu gave them both one last warm smile before stepping out the door, disappearing down the hallway like a quiet guardian. That night, as Ethan and Claire sat on the couch together, staring at the glowing lights of their little Christmas tree, Claire couldn't stop smiling. She held the snow globe in her hands, turning it over and over, watching the glitter swirl like tiny miracles inside. "Ethan," she said softly, pulling him closer, "you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Do you know that?" Ethan nodded, resting his head on her shoulder. "You're the best mom ever," he murmured. "I just wanted you to have something special." Claire kissed the top of his head, her heart full and aching all at once. "You're my special gift every single day." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Claire completed the scholarship application Keanu had started, submitting it with hope and determination, knowing that her life and her future had just begun to change. With trepidation, Claire couldn't stop wondering if this was really happening, if someone like her, who had been scraping by for so long, could finally reach for her dreams. Then, on Christmas Eve, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from the community college, offering her a full scholarship and welcoming her to their teaching program. Claire sat at the kitchen table, reading the letter over and over, her hands shaking. "We did it, Ethan," she cried, pulling him into her arms. "I'm going back to school." Ethan laughed, his own eyes brimming with tears. "I knew you could do it, Mom. I knew it." But that wasn't the only surprise that Christmas. On Christmas morning, as they opened the few small gifts under the tree, there was another knock at the door. Claire opened it to find a delivery man holding a large box. Standing there, holding a large neatly wrapped box, the delivery man said, "Delivery for Claire Parker," handing it over. Confused, Claire brought the box inside and opened it with Ethan's help. Inside was a brand new laptop, a stack of textbooks, and a handwritten note. The note read, "Claire, every teacher needs the right tools. I know you'll make a difference. Keep believing in yourself. Merry Christmas, Keanu." Claire pressed the note to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Ethan hugged her tightly, overwhelmed by the kindness they had been shown. Over the next few months, Claire began her classes, juggling her studies with her jobs and caring for Ethan. It wasn't easy. There were late nights, moments of doubt, and days when she wondered if she could keep going. But she did, inspired by the support she had received. Claire wasn't sure she could really do it, but every time she felt like giving up, she looked at the snow globe on their shelf, a reminder of that fateful day and the man who believed in her. Keanu never contacted them again directly, but his gesture set off a ripple effect that would carry them forward for years to come. 2 years later, Claire graduated, earning her teaching credential and landing a job at a local elementary school. Ethan, now in high school, watched his mom transform into someone he had always known she could be, confident, strong, and inspiring. Years later, as Claire stood in front of her classroom, helping a group of second graders learn to read, she thought back to that snowy December day. She remembered the kindness of a stranger who had changed everything. Every Christmas, as Claire and Ethan decorated their tree, they placed the snow globe at the top, a symbol of hope, love, and the power of believing in others. It was a reminder of the stranger who had seen Claire's worth when she couldn't.